first time I heard the deep-throated whistle of the big boy was when it was crossing the Tuckhannock Viaduct shortly after entering Pennsylvania from New York. My wife and I were amazed at the size of the crowd that gathered at that out-of-the-way place. In 2019, I was fascinated to hear that Union Pacific had restored Big Boy 2014 to operational condition. I thought it would be cool to go west to see it run, but excursions were infrequent and such a trip didn't seem feasible. I was delighted to find that it was making a coast-to-coast tour that included a stop in my hometown of Philadelphia. Two of my grandsons went with us to see it at Steamtown, where it was on display next to its sister, number 4012, which was donated to Steamtown in 1962 while the collection was still in Vermont. 4012 has been in Scranton since 1984 and has been cosmetically restored. I hold out no hope of it ever running again. I've heard that Steamtown had more visitors in the first 2 days the big boy was there than they had in all of 2025. The big boy's consist was distributed in the Steamtown yard. The sounds are from its diesels. I've read that the big boy provides its own power, but the diesels help by providing dynamic braking. It's not clear to me if they're also needed to provide positive train control. I imagine they also serve as emergency backup if the big boy has problems. Speaking of big boys, we saw this as we stopped for ice cream on the way home. The boys enjoyed it and were even willing to pose with us in matching big boy shirts. I caught the big boy in motion at several stops on its way from Scranton to Philadelphia. We sat for hours in record-breaking heat, waiting for the big boy to arrive at Port Clinton. On its way into Port Clinton, the big boy exchanged whistle blasts with Reading Blue Mountain and Northern Railroad's number 2101, a T1 locomotive which was cooling in a shed, but still had enough steam for the whistle. Despite record-setting 100-degree-plus temperatures and unrelenting sun, large crowds formed at every spot along the route. At the stop in Reading, over 100 people required medical attention due to the heat. I calculated that it was going 25 miles an hour here as it steamed through Gibraltar. I was only a stone's throw from Washington's headquarters in Valley Forge National Historic Park as it passed through. The sun was directly behind the train when I took this video. Now I'm in West Conshohocken looking at it as it comes around the curve. My friend George Harris took this segment from his office. I calculated that it was going 30 miles an hour at this point. Although they could go faster, I believe that's a typical speed for a big boy when they were in service. Here it is in Philadelphia. Huge crowds came to see it both days it was here, and many were turned away when they closed the exhibit at 1:30 on Sunday instead of the advertised 3 o'clock because so many people were being affected by the heat. The heat broke on Monday morning, giving way to storms as the big boy was leaving town. Other diehards and I stood through a drenching rain waiting for it to cross the Columbia Bridge. The rain passed before the train finally arrived. Apparently it either hit or got close to a downed tree before reaching the bridge and slowed down. It stopped near where I was standing, and a crew member got off to inspect it for damage. I guess it was fine because he got back on board and it pulled away. A crew member waved goodbye as it left Philadelphia on its westward journey. About 40 years ago, my father-in-law was gifted this HO scale big boy locomotive. He wasn't a model railroader and didn't have a layout, but he wanted it as a display piece. He mounted a short piece of track on a black piece of plexiglass, attached the big boy to it, and displayed it on his mantel. When he passed, it came to me, and it's been on a shelf ever since. The big boy is really too big for my layout, and it doesn't fit the Pennsylvania Railroad theme I'm trying to achieve, so I left it on the shelf. Until now. With the real big boy visiting Pennsylvania this month, I decided it was time for the little one to visit my railroad. I gave it some white grease and applied power to it for the very first time in its history. Here it is, having a race with my Pennsy K4. As expected, the K4 passenger engine beat the slower but much more powerful big boy, which was designed to haul freight. While it was visiting my layout, I decided to put it on static display at my model of the Strasburg Railroad Station, where it's between a Pennsy E6 Atlantic and Thomas the Tank Engine, who is also a regular visitor to Strasburg. It will probably stay there for a few weeks before returning to its shelf.